It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there.
Good evening, everybody. You're watching America First. My name is Nicholas J. Fuentes. We have a great show for you tonight. Very excited to be back here with you tonight on Thursday. We have a lot to talk about tonight, lots to get into. Big show. It's good to be back in the studio. I was away for the past few days, missed half the week, but I did some shows on the road, which was kind of fun. It's been years since I did a show on the road like that, I think. And I can't talk too much about where I was and what I was working on. It's another collaboration, but you're not going to see it for a little while. You're not going to see it until next year, actually. But it's good, and it was a lot of work. So I don't know if I'm sick or if my voice is just dead from talking so much, but I'm not feeling 100%. That's why I'm a little later. I literally just got home. In the morning, I was on Alex Jones today on InfoWars in studio, and we did an hour, and it was phenomenal. I thought really good chemistry. My friendship with Alex Jones just keeps getting better and better. I mean, I consider him a good friend. So we had a lot of fun on the show this morning, and then I raced over to the airport, and I found out my flight was like a half hour earlier than I thought it was. I was totally late. I thought it was at 1:15. It was at like 12:30, so I was screwed. So I was at the airport all day like an idiot, and that's not his fault. That's my fault. I didn't know what time my flight was, and so I just got back, and now I'm doing another show. So the grind never stops. Generational run never stops. It keeps going. But our featured story tonight, we're going to be talking all about John Bolton, who has just been indicted in a classified documents case. Little taste of their own medicine. And let's be honest, this is just straight up revenge. Trump is delivering on revenge. They charged him with classified documents. Now he's doing the same thing to them. And so they hit James Comey. That was a few weeks ago. Now John Bolton has been charged. And these are two guys that wrote their tell-all books, and they created all kinds of problems for Trump, and they supported the many indictments against Trump and his impeachment and the rest of it. And true to his word, Trump is delivering. It seems like the DOJ is doing his bidding. They dropped this huge classified documents case on John Bolton. They went into his house, just like they did to Trump at Mar-a-Lago. They rifled through his stuff, took his papers, and they hit him with a number of these charges, which could put him in jail for the rest of his life if he's convicted. It's pretty serious. And I like to see it. Don't get me wrong. I like it. It's good because John Bolton is objectively a terrible person. He's a neocon. He's a warmonger. He's like the definition of the enemy of America First. Or certainly he represents a faction of the enemies of America First. And so I like to see that he's going to jail, or at the minimum that he's being put through this process. And it's fair. This is what the Democrats and many of the Republicans did to Trump. It was a political attack. This is the game they wanted to play. Well, now they're getting a little taste of that themselves. So I like to see it for obvious reasons. He's not a good guy. It's satisfying because it's fair. But I have to say that I don't like where the country is headed. This is not good. I think anyone recognizes this is not. Maybe we should avoid using words like good and bad. This is destabilizing. This is escalatory. This is destabilizing. All that we're seeing with everything, whether it's the ICE detention centers, the Supreme Court case on the Voting Rights Act and the apportionment of, or I should say, the drawing of the map of the districts, the case in Texas and California having to do with gerrymandering, all this stuff, these indictments, Jimmy Kimmel, we're just moving full speed ahead towards like a civil war. And I never was that guy. I said that on Alex Jones this morning, and I think if you watch my show, that's true. I'm not the Civil War guy. I'm not a prepper or anything like that. But lately, I have been sounding the alarm. It's getting dangerously close to that, because everything that you would see that would precipitate that, all the pieces are coming into place. There's constitutional questions about authority. People are contesting the results of the election. You have different jurisdiction and their law enforcement competing with each other. Federal troops, National Guard, ICE versus the local police versus the power reserved for the states to mobilize a National Guard. You've got political leadership on both sides agitating. You've got kind of in the private sector, people are going their separate ways. So I don't think it's imminent, but it's looking a lot more likely. Things are getting worse. And I don't know. On some level, you might say maybe this is a necessary step. For us to win, we have to fight. For us to take back control of our country, we have to defeat the enemy, and that means that the only way out is through. It's a valid argument. That's why I don't necessarily say it's good or bad. On the other hand, you might say, is it necessary? Maybe there's an angle where we can reform the system, where with overwhelming force we could prevent conflict. That's kind of where I've been at. I recognize, and we'll get into this, of course, later, but just briefly, I think everybody recognizes, like, we need to win. These people do need to be decisively confronted and defeated. Here's my hang-up, is I think that since we're in power, we need to overwhelm them completely so there's no fight. If we take half measures and if we give them the impression that they could win, that they can resist us, then it will prolong the battle. It will prolong the suffering. So I'm of the opinion this is a battle worth fighting. I like seeing some of the things that are happening, but I just want to see everything wider, deeper, and times 10. Because the only way to prevent real civil conflict, what people call stochastic terrorism, a low level of political violence that is sustained over time. People talk about a national divorce, schism, real instability. I think the only way to avoid something like that is overwhelming force, bold action. And you just need to utterly defeat them, strike at the head, let them scatter, make them afraid to associate with each other. I think that's the only way. Because otherwise, if they think that this is a fight, if we take half measures, if Trump is weak, and if they think that they can resist him, then they will. And they will gather their strength. They will fortify on the left. And if we give them a chance to regroup and they win, let's say in 28 or 32 or whatever, then you're just going to see this tit for tat keep escalating. And there's a chance you could always get off on an exit, on that road, but there's no guarantees you'll be able to stop it. So I'm in favor of overwhelming force. But anyway, we'll talk all about that. That'll be our main story. Getting ahead of myself a little bit. We're also going to talk tonight about Venezuela. Just like everything else, we're going to war. And the Trump administration has bombed another drug trafficking vessel. That's what they're claiming. They're approving, allegedly, strikes on the ground in Venezuela now that they've taken control of the sea. Trump has authorized the CIA to operate covertly inside Venezuela. And today, B-52 bombers were circling the airspace over Venezuela, and many people believe that a bombing campaign is imminent. And it looks like we're going to get regime change there one way or another. We've been covering this a little bit. Apparently, there was a deal in the works where Maduro, the president of Venezuela, was going to give us what we want: gold, oil, realign their capital towards ours. Trump rejected it. Marco Rubio, in particular, the Secretary of State, he rejected the deal. And now it seems that whether the United States intervenes militarily or whether they just crank up the pressure until the regime collapses from within, regime change is inevitable here. That seems to be the end game. That has been the end game for many years. And Trump is really putting the screws in this country. So either he's going to go in or he's going to create the appearance of going in so that the regime, the bottom falls out from under them. They'll be eating each other. And then the CIA will install this Machado who just won the Nobel Prize. I think that's where this is headed soon. So we'll talk about that too. Should be a pretty good show. Like I said, I'm a little tired. It's been a long week for me. A lot of travel, a lot of content, a lot of shows. I did a couple of big collaborations when I was in Texas. I did this big project. We did a lot of content. Then I did shows. Then I did InfoWars. Then I came here. So I'm a little beat up. If it's not the best show, don't blame me. I'm tired and I'm mortal. And I'm not doing a show tomorrow. I'm taking a break. Next week, I'm not going to be here Monday, but we have a long-awaited collaboration on Tuesday night. And before people ask, no, it is not Tucker Carlson. It is a different one, but it's another big collaboration, highly anticipated, extremely contentious. I don't know how it's going to go. It might be vicious, and it might be friendly. I'm going to go into it friendly, but it might get ugly. But I'm going to go into it open-minded and friendly. So it's going to be a highly anticipated collaboration next week. Then I'll be back for the rest of the week. That's our schedule. Before we get into it, I want to remind you to smash the follow button on Rumble, smash the like button, leave a comment, let me know what you think about the show. One other thing before we get into the news. Did you guys see this Daily Wire debate that aired this evening? Oh my gosh, guys, they are losing the plot here. And by they, I mean the Jews. They're losing. They can't help it. They are in a death spiral. And that's not a dog whistle. I don't mean anything violent by that. I mean, they are in a pattern of behavior where everything they do makes it worse. And it seems like there's nothing they could do, like they're not capable of doing anything that can make things better. Their behavior is causing people to really not like them. And their response to this is to just increase those behaviors. So people don't like that they're completely intolerant of dissent or criticism. So what do? They freak out. Anyone criticizes them, they call them trash. They say you're a foreign agent, you're an anti-Semite. They get angry. And it's like, this just keeps, it really is circling the drain because it's cyclical almost. People get angry and the Jews tell them you have to be suppressed. People get angrier. The Jews get even more suppressive, more censorious, if that's a word, more tyrannical. And it just keeps going and going. And this was a perfect example of it tonight. So as you know, I've been hypercritical of the two Catholic goyim at Daily Wire, Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles. You got 4 guys left at Daily Wire. Candace Owens left, Brett Cooper left. They're doing their own crazy town stuff now. You got 4 players left in the game. You got Ben Shapiro, who we all know who that is. You got Andrew Klavan, he's like a mini Ben Shapiro. Jewish, technically a Christian convert, but still extremely Jewish. Then you got Michael Knowles and Matt Walsh, 2 white Catholics. And it is my humble opinion that Michael Knowles and Matt Walsh are what is keeping Daily Wire afloat. Because you remove them from the equation, and Daily Wire's a couple of pro-Israel Jews. That's just what it is. Matt Walsh is pro-white, very traditional Catholic, very socially conservative, and he's white and patriotic, and he lives in Tennessee, and he's got a wife, and he's got sons, and he's got a beautiful family. So people do not like Shapiro at all anymore. People don't even know who Klavan is, but they like Matt Walsh a lot. Michael Knowles, he's a little more flamboyant, but that's okay. I'm a little flamboyant too. Michael Knowles is Italian, Catholic, and he's a little more philosophical. I would say he's less polemical than Matt Walsh. He went to Yale, so he's pretty educated, smart guy, and he's also very socially conservative and very likable. I criticize these guys, but Michael Knowles really actually seems like a good guy. So people are drawn to them. They're the appeal. So people don't like Shapiro, but they say, you know what, Matt Walsh is all right. Michael Knowles is all right. And they, being far right, being socially conservative Catholics, being pro-white, patriotic, nativistic, they still represent some semblance of the Trumpian hard right that is very appealing to the base of the Republican Party, and in particular to the young men, to the, let's say, 18 to 40-year-old white men. And that's kind of like, that's a big demographic, but that's really the demo that matters. They love Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles. They love that flavor that Walsh and Knowles are giving them. They have decisively turned against the free market, pro-Israel, small government. It's like nonsense Judeo-Christian ideology of Shapiro, Klavan, and sometimes Jordan Peterson, who's also there. So I've said, when you really map it out like this, you realize if it wasn't for Walsh and Knowles, Daily Wire would crash and burn. Because people would say, okay, so it's just a pro-Israel racket. Who needs that? And Shapiro, I don't think, has ever been more unpopular. There was a time when he was number one. Like, people considered him to be a contender for the number one spot. He was young, up and coming, fresh. There was a time when people considered Shapiro just like a far-right debate bro. They considered him to be edgy and shocking and far-right and owns the libs of facts and logic. You really maybe do not realize the extent to which he has lost all his cultural cachet. And people inherently now look at him with suspicion because he is Jewish and pro-Israel in a way that was not the case ever, even 5 years ago. Forget about 10 years ago. So I've been very critical, and I've said, Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles, what are you doing? You got to leave. Why are you working for the guy who is synonymous with the pro-Israel capture of the conservative movement? Why are you hanging out with him? He clearly hates America. He's seething against anti-Semites, and he hates the far right. They're not race realists. They're not identitarian. They're not Christian. They don't love America. It's like, so what are you doing there? You're working for them. You're working alongside them. And by being associated, you're actually buttressing their credibility. You're framing them in a positive way. So you're like a puppet regime. You're like a puppet regime of a foreign invader. It's a deep treachery. I've been very critical, and I've been putting a lot of pressure on Walsh. And look, nothing personal, kid. I try to be kind, and I try to be fair. I think Walsh and Knowles, I think they're good guys. I don't know them. I've never met them. I've never talked to them. I met Knowles very briefly 7 years ago, but he didn't know me at the time. They seem like good guys. They seem like nice guys. I imagine I get along with them. I think they're doing a lot of good, but they're doing a lot of evil by supporting this crap. And I've been critical of them, not to hurt their feelings, not to hurt their reputation, but to put pressure on them to leave and do the right thing. And anyway, long preamble to say, today there was a big debate hosted by Daily Wire, and it was the four of them, Shapiro, Klavan, Knowles, and Walsh. And they're doing a debate stream between the four of them. And of course, everyone's talking about this Politico article from a couple of days ago where a young Republican group chat leaks, and all these young guys are making jokes about Hitler and gas chambers and Jews and watermelon people and calling black people monkeys and joking about rape. And I think what was sobering about this is kind of the universal acknowledgement that this is just how everyone is now. This is what is happening in all the group chats. And before people, well, not all of them, a lot of them. This is just how young Zoomers, Generation Z, this is how the youngest white men in America are talking. And they're not unironic exterminationists. They don't unironically want Holocaust and gas chambers and National Socialism, although some of them maybe are not going to demonize Hitler in the way that historically has been the case, but they're not in favor of like genocide. Like, let's be honest. It's edgy humor. It's edgy jokes. They're being funny. They're in private. They don't think they're being watched. the chats get leaked, and the takeaway is the conversation has completely changed. The vernacular, the culture has changed. And many people on our side, like ostensibly on our side, like J.D. Vance and Matt Walsh, these are two Catholic guys, white guys, they say, almost as an instinctual response, they say, who cares? Look at the bigger picture. They're saying, have we so quickly forgotten that last month Charlie Kirk got shot in the face by a leftist? And so there's no comparison. Of course, the left at Politico and even the cucks in the Republican Party, they want to run this up the flagpole and they want to make a stink about this. And now they want to root out anyone that's ever made a bad joke. And they want to clutch their pearls and act offended. We all know what that is. It's just jokes. It doesn't hurt anybody. And so Walsh and Vance are saying, these are kids. Some of them are a little older, actually, but they're young people. It's relatively harmless. They're not serious. And what's more, let's look at the bigger picture. The left wants us dead. Sometimes they make it happen. They kill us. People running for office for the Democrats want us dead. You got a Senate candidate in Maine. It just got revealed, said every Republican's a racist idiot and I'm a communist. You have an AG candidate in Virginia who said these kids need to die. And so Walsh and Vance are saying, where do we find the dividing line of what's appropriate? How about there's some people that don't want to kill us and there's other people that are shooting us in the head? Is that a clear enough dividing line? So Walsh at Daily Wire really goes out on a limb to defend in principle edgy jokes and the hard right. Shapiro has a completely different take. And Shapiro says, no, this is a growing trend. The youth are getting radicalized. They think this is acceptable, and it isn't, because this does reflect a callous indifference to, let's say, racism or anti-Semitism. This does represent a step up on the ADL's pyramid towards the Holocaust. It does reflect a hardening and a radicalizing of the young right wing. He said in this debate, he said, if Matt Walsh gets killed, it's going to be by the left. He said, if I get killed, it might be by the far right because they don't like me for being Jewish. And this is the debate that's happening at Daily Wire. And if you watch the clip, Shapiro is like lecturing Walsh and saying, you are excusing this speech on its face. They haven't apologized and you're forgiving them anyway. The country's getting more hard right and these people want to kill me for being Jewish. Blah, blah, blah. And Matt Walsh, no joke, look at his face in the clip. He blinked about 109 times. He's sitting there while Shapiro is lecturing him and really putting the screws in him. And Walsh is like this, blinking 100 times, like, hey, Matt, blink if you're, oh, okay, blink if you're being held hostage. And I saw this debate, and part of me thinks, is this the beginning of the end? And you got to wonder, what exactly is going through Matt Walsh's head here? There's a war going on out there, buddy. And pretty soon you're going to have to take a side. Walsh and Vance both understand this. And maybe, I don't like Vance. Maybe he's saying it because it plays well. On some level, I don't care. They have it right. Okay, we are white. We are Christian. We all know what we mean when we say make America great again. Look, America sucks now. Why? Too many immigrants, too liberal, too gay, too feminist. What does make America great again? We want to bring back, we want to restore the country from like the 80s or before. And no, that doesn't mean we want to bring back slavery and Jim Crow and the Ku Klux Klan. But it means we're tired of seeing white people stabbed in the neck for no reason. We're tired of Israel dominating our politics. We're tired of HR coming down and breathing down the necks of everybody for making jokes or acting like men. Okay, so Walsh and Vance understand this. Directionally, this is how we identify. We are traditional Americans. We're white, we're Christian, anti-immigration, anti-feminist, conservative temperamentally. We want the country to look more like it did a few decades ago. And there are people that want us dead for this. There are probably millions of Americans that think that we are Nazis for believing that, because we believe in God, because we believe in America, because we believe in the white race, because we believe in patriarchy. They believe we are Nazis, and Nazis always do holocausts, so they have to kill us to prevent genocide. And that's what millions of left-wing people believe, and they will incite violence against us, and when it happens, they'll deny it, they'll look the other way, they'll cover it up. When they get in power, they'll systematize the violence. They'll take our guns away. They'll take the police away. They'll bring Section 8 in your neighborhood. They'll bring immigrants by the millions every year. It's like, so Vance and Walsh understand the score here. We're fighting for our lives. We're fighting for God. We're fighting for our country. Yes, we're fighting for our race as Europeans. We're fighting for patriarchy, for male leadership. We're fighting for the survival of the American nation. They get it. And whatever the intramural debates are that happen on the right and the narcissism of small differences and things like that, it goes out the window when we start getting shot by BLM transgender communists. And whether Tyler Robinson pulled the trigger or not, that exists. That exists because they celebrated it. So people say, well, maybe Tyler Robinson is the patsy. Maybe that's the case. But you still have transgenders shooting up Catholic churches and schools. You still have Antifa. You still have BLM. And you still had tens of thousands of people celebrating and mocking Charlie Kirk when he died because they thought he's a Nazi. So that's real. And that is how we would define our tribe and then engage in politics. Shapiro is not the same way. Shapiro is Jewish. And insofar as the Jewish religion, the Orthodox Jewish religion is traditional in some sense, maybe has some commonality. But Shapiro doesn't care if America gets diverse. He said it himself. He says, I don't give a damn about the browning of America. He said, if white people are complaining that there's no jobs, it's because you're a loser. He said, you're not promised anything. You're entitled to nothing, goy. He says, the only thing you're promised, this is a quote, is the adventure of a lifetime. So I don't care if your ancestors have been buried in the same cemetery for 6 generations. You need to uproot and move to an oil field in North Dakota. You need to uproot and go work and do fracking somewhere else. And if you have a problem with that, well, you're just a loser, ingrate white person who needs to be replaced by better, more American Indians and Chinese that actually want to work hard. Like, that's Shapiro's ideology. Shapiro's not a Christian. Shapiro doesn't believe in Jesus Christ. This guy's not on our side. And insofar as Shapiro's in favor of Israel's domination of America, he sets himself against the American sovereignty, America First, American independence movement, and feels threatened by it. So Shapiro said, yeah, Matt Walsh might be getting shot at by leftists. I'm getting shot at by everybody because I support Israel. And doesn't that say it all? Does that not say it all? Walsh lives in Tennessee, where the Daily Wire headquarters is. You know where Shapiro lives? Do you think he lives in Tennessee, where all the Daily Wire studios are, with Walsh and Knowles, and where Candace Owens used to live? No. Ben Shapiro lives in Boca Raton in South Florida, because that's where all the Jews are. Isn't that weird? Don't you think that's a... And by the way, when this debate happened, Shapiro wasn't even there. He was in Israel. So over here in America, in Tennessee, in Wisconsin, in Utah, white Americans are getting shot at by communists. And communists are celebrating. These left-wing trash are celebrating because they think if you want America to be white and proud and Christian, you're a Nazi. And they're shooting at us. While this is going down, Shapiro's in Israel, flying on private jets with security that probably costs millions of dollars a year to protect him, because we all know he supports Israel over the United States. Is this clocking to Matt Walsh? Is it clicking when he's in the Zoom call getting berated and lectured by Shapiro? And here's really what it comes down to. Let's just say it this way. Shapiro is right in the sense that this group chat does reflect the radicalization of the youth. That's a good thing. It's a good thing. Because the political correctness, the narrative control surrounding Hitler, which was created and propped up by the ADL and SPLC, the HR sensitivity training, the anti-racist stuff, all of that is a mind virus to make white people guilty and surrender our country. I'm not a hateful, cruel person. I don't want a genocide. But America is supposed to mean something. When we think of what an American is, we're supposed to think of something particular and definite and discrete. And by discrete, I mean tangible and whole. And so if young white men don't care about those speech codes, if they're embracing American identity, if they're becoming radically right-wing and they don't care about the thought policing and the white guilt and the victim narratives of the left, that's a good thing. And if they do not treat those sacred cows of the left with the kind of sanctity that they're expected to, that's a good thing. It's good that the youth is getting radicalized. It's good that they're irreverent. It's good that they're extremely traditionally Christian. It's good that they're pro-white. It's good that they're nativistic and patriarchal. That's a good thing. And Matt Walsh knows that, and J.D. Vance knows that, and you know that, and I know that. Because these radical young white youth are going to grow up and they're going to fight for America. They're going to fight against all this feminist, liberal, diversity bullshit. But that comes with something else too, because if you're Christian, you're not Jewish. If you're America first, you're not Israel first. If you're America first, you're against all their wars, their foreign aid. If you believe America has an identity, guess what America's identity is not? Ethnically or religiously Jewish. It's racially white, it's religiously Christian. And so the more radical that the young white men become, the more their conception of American identity hardens. It forces the contradiction to the fore, which is that the more American you get, the less you can really tolerate this Judeo-Christian myth. The less you could tolerate this melting pot myth, the less you could tolerate this pro-Israel lobby, the less you could tolerate Jewish billionaires like Larry and David Ellison that are buying the media to make us support another country. That comes with it too. It's unavoidable, and it's inextricably connected. It's part of that. And obviously Shapiro sees this as a bad thing. Because Shapiro, as long as he's a pro-Israel Jew, has to be kind of a liberal. If America is for everybody, then it could be for him too. If America is a colorblind meritocracy and anyone can set up shop and become super powerful, then so can he. But if America is prioritizing our heritage, our people, our identity, our independence, well, then he is lumped in with the other outsiders. He doesn't like that. And so, that's really the dividing line, is that, yes, it is true, the conversation's changing, the youth are waking up, that's good. And by the way, when I say people should not be afraid by radicalization, what's radical is what's happening now. What's radical is you have Austin Metcalf getting stabbed in the neck with a knife and black people raise $500,000 for his killer. That's radical. It's radical that Charlie Kirk is shot in the neck and one of the big late night shows blames it on his own side and just lies about it completely recklessly. Like it's radical to bring in 10 million illegal aliens and say anyone can be American. It's not our country. It was never our country. Like reparations, that's radical. That's bullshit. So we need a hard, far, edgy, radical right wing that says this has all gone too far. It's time to shut all this stuff down. Not in a sick, cruel, sicko way, but It's time to restore America, make America great again. And Shapiro will never be comfortable with what is required to do that. So I saw Matt Walsh receiving the lecture and looked visibly uncomfortable. Like I said, blinking like 1,000 times. You could read it on his face how uncomfortable he is. And you got to wonder, bro, what is going through your head when you hear this stuff? You know this is nonsense. When Shapiro, like, think about it. Think about where we're at. Charlie Kirk got shot in the face for being a Nazi. And Shapiro, your boss, is concern trolling about a fucking group chat. Whose side is he on? You know, like, people are getting stabbed and shot and we're on the verge of a civil war. And Shapiro is saying, well, hold on now. Who says we can't cancel these young kids for making racist jokes in a group chat? Hey, man, read the room. Fuck you. They should have their lives ruined. So what are you thinking, Walsh? Whose side are you on? Your fellow Catholics, your fellow whites, your fellow Americans? Are you on the side of your boss, who's in Israel right now for the signing of this peace deal? Whose side are you on? And I say this about Shapiro. The reason why I think this is like a breaking point is they just have no give. This would have been an opportunity, by the way, for Shapiro to actually engender some goodwill among people that would be skeptical. Think about what I'm saying here. I'm not saying that there's no accommodation for anyone that's Jewish or pro-Israel. I recognize there's a lot of Jews in the country, and on some level, you know, they're not going anywhere, okay? So we're not looking to eliminate them or anything like that. And it's, if Shapiro was even thinking strategically for his own benefit, this would have been the opportunity to actually create some goodwill. How? These young kids, they're making jokes. They're young Republicans. You think they hate Jews? They're making jokes. This would be an opportunity for Shapiro to say, you know what? They're just kids. They're making jokes. And I think a lot of people might have said, this would be for Shapiro's benefit. A lot of people would have said, you know, I don't like Shapiro, but good on him for defending these people. Good on him for being consistent and not clutching his pearls. And good on him for reading that actually would have been the more tactful play. But it's like I've been saying, these people, it's not in their vocabulary. They have no charity, no give, no good faith, no goodwill, not an ounce. It's not there. And so we're obviously in the situation where the under 25 crowd, like, they're over Israel and they're over being told what to do and what's okay by the Jews. And the Jews recognize they got a problem. And instead of the humility, which would be required to say, we need to win these people back. We need to understand where they're coming from and meet them where they are. We want to earn their affection back. I don't know, how about by understanding them? How about by being charitable towards them? Building rapport? They hate us too much. So Shapiro, with his giant eyebrows and his evil visage, his goblin-like visage, is going to get on the show and say, who's to say we can't cancel? Yeah, they didn't even apologize for what they said. Oy vey, they didn't even apologize for other Holocaust jokes. And we're already forgiving them? Not so fast. If someone's going to kill me, it's going to be one of these right-wing guys. They're not capable of letting it go. And now I'm sure Matt Walsh is thinking, what are you talking about? What are you doing? They just keep doubling down, summoning Shapiro, Levin, Josh Hammer, Laura Loomer, these psycho freaks. And don't for one second kid yourself and think that we are the haters. They are the haters. They are the racists. They are the intolerant ones. They are the control freaks that want to tell us what we could say and who we can vote for and how much money we can give to Israel every year. Look at them. They're evil. Look at Josh Hammer. Tell me that's not a sick human being. Mark Levin, one of the most nasty, negative, vile human beings you'll ever see, and no self-awareness. And in an era where people are falling out of love with the Jews, they deploy these people who are going to be the berserkers and bully us back into loving the Jews by getting on Twitter and motherfucking Tucker Carlson every day. Tucker Carlson's an anti-Semite. He's working for Qatar. You think you're winning anybody? You think you're getting anybody back on the plantation with that? You're losing them. And I hope you're losing Matt Walsh. And I hope Matt Walsh sees what's going on there. Because I got to tell you, with every passing day, it's just getting more inexcusable. This is the fight. Like it, love it, dread it, run from it. This is the fight. And I know Walsh wants to recuse himself from this so that he could focus on asking what a woman is. You know, he's going to eat shit from Shapiro so that he could go around asking people, what's a woman? I don't like immigrants. Like, okay, dude. Maybe this isn't the fight you wanted. This is the fight you got. And there was another clip at the very beginning, just the last thing, then we'll move on. There's one other clip at the very beginning. And I didn't even see this get clipped, but I put it on before the show, and I was just going to work through the whole debate from start to finish. And so the four of them get together. They're on the Zoom. Like I said, it's Walsh, Knowles, Klavan, Shapiro. They're all talking. And Michael Knowles is doing the introduction. He says, well, it's Daily Wire's 10-year anniversary. He goes, it's also Matt Walsh's 8-year anniversary at the company. That's great. And Walsh says, do I get, he's making a joke. He's doing this like, you know, typical white guy thing. He's like, oh, do I get anything for being here for 8 years? Do I get a cupcake? Blah, blah. You know, stupid, whatever. And you know what Shapiro says? Oh, these people. So Walsh is, you know, Michael Knowles saying, well, we're celebrating Walsh's 8 years at the company. And, you know, Klavan goes, oh, it's a somber, it's sad. Oh, it's unfortunate. Yeah, ha, ha. Walsh says, oh, what do I get? Do I get a cupcake? Do I get a parking spot? Ha, ha. Shapiro says, I'll tell you what you get. You get a big check every month. You get a huge paycheck every. He actually said that. I'm not making that up. They're joking. It's like workplace banter. Walsh says, oh, what do I get for I'm at the company 8 years? What do I get? A party? Do I get a cupcake? Shapiro says, you get a big check. You get a huge check with a lot of money every month. That's what you, okay? Is it me? Am I reading too much in? Like, that's who these people are. That's who they are. No shame, no honor. Not an ounce of introspection, self-awareness, much. Same thing with Gavin Wax. Dude, it's just like again and again and again. Dude, Gavin Wax, the mafia boss that threw every bit under the bus. You're not a mafia boss. You're a fucking rat, Gavin Wax. You see, I'm just like ranting like a crazy person now, but I don't know if you saw, we've been talking about the Politico thing. That's at the center of it. Gavin Wax is the one that sold all these young Republicans out and fed them into the wood chipper, gave them to Politico. Now we're all under the scrutiny of the left. And there's a Daily Mail piece about it. And Gavin Wax is the perpetrator of this. And they say, oh, he's like a mafia boss. He's like the Don of New York. And I bet he thinks he is one. You guys are not bosses. Do not ever for 1 second think that you are scoundrels. You are not a boss. You are not a Don. Never forget that. You know, Italians are Dons. Italians are bosses. You're a Pharisee. You're a fucking scribe. So sit down and shut up. I saw that today. I'm like, and I know he loves to think of himself that way. You're eating shit. What are you, the chief of staff or the under secretary of policy at the State Department under another shtetl Jew, Darren Beatty? Give me a break. You think you're a big shot? You're nothing. Fighting over a committee position for the young Republicans. Grow up. It's unbelievable. Anyway. So, listen, man, I've just had it up to here with the Jewish tricks. It's got to stop. It's totally one-sided. It really is. And I'll tell you why. Let me tell you exactly why, and then we'll actually move on. As I'm really pissed about all this, because it just keeps compounding. I'll tell you why it's one-sided. Because every one of these people, like a Tucker Carlson, a Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Matt Gaetz, Steve Bannon, they are tripping over themselves to clarify, we don't have a problem with Israel at all. We don't have a problem with Jews at all. Tripping over themselves to say, we're not hateful, we're not crazy, etc. And cast me as the outsiders occasionally. They're tripping over themselves to qualify, to condition their criticism of Israel upon these other things. Do you ever get that from Levin? No. Do you ever get that from Shapiro? Absolutely not. It is just the most bald-faced, bold lies. The way Mark Levin lies about Tucker Carlson, it's demonic. It's diabolical. The way they sit there and type out these 3,000-word essays on Twitter about how Tucker's a foreign agent and he's evil and he's a liar and he's this. And I'm not even like rushing to defend him, but it's like there's clearly charity and you can see some kind of Christ-likeness shine through a Tucker, a Marjorie, a Matt Gaetz. Although I have criticisms of them, although I might disagree about some of the ways they go about it. But on the other side, there's no, like, they would kill you. Like Loomer and Levin and Shapiro and Josh Hammer and Gavin Wax, they would slit your throat. They would lie about it. They would do it with a wicked grin and they would laugh about it. That is obvious by the way they talk. You know, when we talk about Jews, we say very specifically, we say, you know, they're more loyal to themselves in America. You can understand why that is. They've been stateless, nomadic, etc. The way they talk about us, they say, you're garbage, you're trash, you're a moron, you're filth, it's hatred. It's real hatred. So it's like, when are the actual righteous people with the courage of their convictions, with the moral courage of their convictions, knowing that we are righteous, going to stand up and say, we're not going to take this from you anymore. We will not tolerate this. The bullying, the gaslighting, their deception, their intimidation, the way they're holding our country hostage. And I'm not expecting everybody to, you know, go and flip over the tables or whatever, but it starts with, we can't be associated with this. Walsh, you got to leave this company, man. Like Gavin Wax, Shapiro, these people need to be quarantined. Yeah, they're still going to have their patrons, they're still going to be protected, but let them be alone. Shapiro, Loomer, Josh Hammer, they want to betray our country every day. They want to lie. Barry Weiss, let them do it alone. And let the emperor walk out naked with no clothes and let everybody gaze upon our hated, distrusted Jewish elite. Our David and Larry Ellisons, our Barry Weisses, our Shapiros, Loomers, Hammers, Levins, they will continue to occupy the White House and infiltrate. Let them do it alone and let everybody see there is not even a pretense of an alliance, of a democracy, that we're all in this together. They are a hostile force. They are running the country. Isolate them and let everybody see how unpopular they are. That's what I'm saying. Disassociate. I don't know why, you know, Walsh and Michael Knowles are appearing on a Zoom with Shapiro and Klavan, grinning like idiots and treating them like they're anything other than traitors. Like we're all buddies. Oh, we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary at work. We're all buddies here, right? It's like, no, they hate us. They're raping our country. And, you know, this is a problem that it's been around for a long time. It's going to be around. But you just can't be a party to this any longer. You cannot be a part of the problem like that. So Grow a pair, man. Candace could do it. Candace left a year and a half ago, and Walsh and Knowles are still there. Why? Just leave. How do you look at yourself in the mirror? You work for Ben Shapiro. Holy, 2025, you're a Catholic, pro-white, patriot. Okay, patriot. Patriot, you work for him. It's so wrong. It's wrong. He knows it's wrong. You know it's wrong. I know it's wrong. It's wrong. Anyway, that's that. And I can't believe it even needs to be said. I get animated because it's like young Republicans, and, you know, I don't know these guys. Maybe they're groypers. Maybe they're not. They are what they are. But it's like, you know, these guys, they're young. They're trying to do the right thing. They're activists in politics. Yeah, they made some jokes. The left wants to destroy them. Like the local press is picking it up. These guys are getting their lives ruined. And Shapiro's going to fold his arms and say, yeah, we should go after them. They should be forced to apologize for joking about the Holocaust. While you support the famine in Gaza. Like, fuck you, dude. Ugh. You know, it's real. You know, I'm getting a little worked up, but it's like, it's just that level of deception. It's evil. It's so evil. And anyway, so that's that. But that, I don't even know. I think that's the whole show. I think I've been talking about this for like an hour, but I've been thinking about this Politico thing, Shapiro, Walsh. I saw that clip and I'm like, man, what are you doing there? And Walsh, you know, he puts out this tweet and he says, you know, after Charlie Kirk gets shot, he says, the right wing needs to unify because they're shooting at us. And I just want to unify with people that aren't shooting at us. I wish we could unify, but if you're with him, we just can't, you know. Are you with us or are you with him? And increasingly, it's like that. And it's like, look, you don't even need to have a particular view, but it's like Shapiro, you're either with him or you're with us, you know. It's that simple. Like, that guy's not on our team. I don't care what your criticisms are of me. Maybe you think I've lost the plot. It doesn't take a low IQ anti-Semite to see that Shapiro is not on our side. Like, he is playing for the wrong team. Wake up and see that, dude. Do the right thing. Knowles, too. Knowles strikes me as kind of non-confrontational, so he'll be there forever, but he'll be there flipping the light switches on and off for them forever. But Walsh, come on, man. Anyway, we're going to move on. Do we even have time to get into the news? I don't even think we do. It's been, when did I start this show? Little after midnight. Well, we'll talk about John Bolton just because we'll change the title of the show, though. I think this is clearly the bigger story. I don't know which one's more clickbaity, but I will change it just because. Spend most of the time talking about it. Then we'll get into John Bolton. Let's see. Shapiro. I don't know. What do we call it? Shapiro berates Walsh. I don't know. It's going to be a dumb title, but I'm writing it on the fly. Okay, all right. We're going to get into our other story. We will talk a little bit about John Bolton. Our news story for tonight is about him. And the big story is that he has been indicted by the Department of Justice in a classified documents case. And we all know what this is. This is just pure revenge. Trump was hit with the classified documents case. This was brought against him by the Democrats. And this followed years of sabotage and persecution, which came from people like Bolton, who wrote his tell-all book about the administration, from James Comey. And so this is the latest in a saga of Trump's revenge, which he is aggressively prosecuting against all of his enemies, against his enemies from his own previous administration, like Comey and Bolton, against the press, which defamed him, very high-profile cases against some of the biggest news media companies. against everybody. This is a revenge tour. And this is the latest stop. They hit John Bolton with a number of classified documents charges that, if he's found guilty, will send him to prison for the rest of his life. And this is a story from the New York Times. It says, quote, John Bolton, the national security hawk and former advisor to President Trump, who became one of his most outspoken critics, was indicted by a federal grand jury in Maryland on Thursday on charges of mishandling classified information. Hate to see it. The indictment against Mr. Bolton was 18 counts and accused him of using personal email and a messaging app to share more than 1,000 pages of diary notes about his day-to-day activities as the national security advisor from 2018 to 2019. The notes, which were sent to 2 family members who did not have a security clearance, included national defense information such as details classified as top secret, according to the indictment. President Trump and his former aide parted bitterly toward the end of the first term. The president greeted the news with grim satisfaction. He said, he's a bad guy. That's the way it goes. What I really liked about Trump's reaction is the indictment came out and the press asked the president, what do you think about John Bolton being indicted? And Trump literally did the line. He goes, I didn't hear about that. You're telling me for the first time. The absolute madman. We have to give the credit where it's due. That was kind of a wink and a nod. Like, that was awesome. Trump is rounding up and arresting all of his enemies, and they say, what do you think about your latest enemy who's being thrown in prison, house raided? And Trump does the meme. He goes, I didn't know that. You're telling me for the first time. It's like, masterful. We have to admit, I said this the other night, we have to admit Trump is still kind of awesome. And look, the Trump administration is totally controlled by Israel. That's why they're not releasing the Epstein files. That's why they're going to war with Iran. It's why Trump is like glad that Miriam Adelson is more loyal to Israel than America. Wants Netanyahu to be pardoned. Like, I know all the relevant facts. But Trump is still really funny. And I hate to say that. I don't want to say that, but it's true. Trump is still really funny. And even if he's not red-pilled, he's definitely still based. And these types of moments, these kinds of moments, they're becoming more infrequent, but he still has them. Seems like he's declining cognitively. He's shriveling up. Like, he's not looking so hot, you know? Like, he's slowing down. But, excuse me, every once in a while, he reminds you that's why he's the GOAT. Every now and again, like I said, few and far between and much more rare nowadays, but every now and again, he reminds you that's why he's the GOAT. So they call him up. They say, are you aware about John Bolton being arrested? He goes, I didn't know that. You're telling me for the first time. I'm like, wow, that's awesome. Anyway, the article goes on. It says, while Bolton is part of a string of perceived enemies of the president to become prosecutorial targets, the federal investigation into him gained momentum during the Biden administration when U.S. intelligence agencies gathered what former officials have described as troubling evidence. The prosecution followed normal department channels without firings or forced transfers. Kelly O. Hayes, the U.S. attorney in Maryland, was among the prosecutors to sign off on the charges with the DOJ's National Security Division. By contrast, Mr. Trump in recent weeks has removed or sidelined prosecutors in order to secure indictments against 2 of his longtime targets, James Comey, the former FBI director, and Letitia James, New York's attorney general. If convicted, Mr. Bolton could spend the rest of his life in prison. Each count carries a maximum potential sentence of 10 years, and there's 18 of them. He's expected to surrender to authorities on Friday and make his initial court appearance in Maryland later that day. So, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know whether he'll be convicted or not. I don't have that expertise. And what the New York Times is reporting is that this appears to have been a fair shake here. That the investigation originated under the Biden administration. There were problems with Bolton. It's a lot like Hillary Clinton's emails. It's like Joe Biden. These federal officials, they're not doing their due diligence. And the facts of the case are that John Bolton is writing a diary on Signal. He's writing a diary on a personal email on Signal, taking notes about classified information and sending it to people and saying, I'm going to use this in my book. You can't do that. If you're the National Security Council is like a windowless building. You go into windowless rooms and you write policy all day. Like, that's what it is. Because the National Security Council, which is where he worked, this is where they synthesize all the intel that's coming from the DNI, the DOD, the Secretary of State. They are the ones that are tasked with delivering the options for the president to act in the world with the military. So this is as sensitive as it gets. And John Bolton is taking notes as the national security advisor, as the head of the NSC, on like group chats, sending text over encrypted messaging apps, over email to family and friends and saying, so today we talked about this. Tomorrow we're going to do this, with the intention of then sending that to these people so that they will apparently compile it and then they can use it in his book that he published for everybody to see. And Bolton's attorney comes out and says, well, we didn't use any of the classified information in the book. Okay, well, you can't be doing that. And what is it with these people, whether it's Hillary Clinton, Bolton, even Trump on some level? What is it with the mishandling of the documents? It seems like this is a systemic issue. So I don't know what's happening here, but the investigation originated under the Biden administration. That's when they took an interest. The charges came down under Trump, and it's not like Trump coerced this. According to the Times, it followed the normal channels. Trump didn't need to lean on anybody, in other words, to secure the indictments. So it seems somewhat organic. Maybe Bolton is just guilty. Either way, you could surmise that probably Trump had some kind of a hand in this, maybe pushing this along, accelerating it. Maybe he's the nucleus of it. Either way, this is part of a long saga of revenge, because it's not the first one. If this was a one and done, you might say, John Bolton's a guilty man. He's not above the law. But this is the third one. You've got James Comey, Letitia James, now Bolton. You've got these major lawsuits against the media companies. This is a revenge campaign. And understand, the punishment is the process itself. I don't know that John Bolton will get convicted. I don't know that he'll get jail time necessarily. Who knows how that will actually be argued in court? The punishment is that he's being set up for this. And it sucks. He's going to have to hire attorneys, which are very expensive. He already had to hire security because Trump revoked his Secret Service protection. So you think about the process. He's got to pay for all this security. He's got to pay now for lawyers. The feds are in his home, raiding his office, raiding his bedroom for documents, turning his residence upside down. This is very distressing. And he's an old man. He's in his 70s, and he's got feds turning his house upside down, looting the place. He's got to hire attorneys. This is a process that could last years. It's very perilous, very stressful. There'll be depositions. There'll be subpoenas. This is going to be very nerve-wracking. He's in the sunset of his life. He wants to be retired. Now he's going to be defending himself in court. Worried about his financial solvency. He's going to have to raise money. The MAGA-peds are going to hate him. Like, he's probably getting harassed maybe in public. If he's going out, he's got to worry about that. So they are making his life a living hell. And that's the point. It's a punishment. Because the DOJ has infinite resources. They have the power of the bully pulpit. And they can just do it. And in the end, maybe Bolton is innocent. Maybe he gets proven not guilty, but he never gets that time and money back. The legal fees, the time, the heartache, the pressure on him and his family, you can't take that back. So even if he gets found innocent by a jury, the DOJ is going to shrug their shoulders and say, well, we tried it. That's the best case scenario. So this is brutal. And this is revenge because this is what they did to Trump. And there used to be an understanding that you don't do this sort of thing. You don't go after your political opponents. You don't necessarily go after these people for clerical issues. But it started with Clinton and her emails. And then it was Trump and Russiagate and the Ukraine phone call. Then it was his classified documents. Then it was Biden. Now it's this. And this is the cycle that we are now in. And I'm going to say, by the way, we don't necessarily know if this was politically motivated. It looks like it, but it's possible that it isn't. It looks like it because it's part of a pattern, but it might be a coincidence. Like, that is possible. Either way, it has the appearance that it's political, and that's all that really matters. So there's a chance that Bolton's a guilty man, and they're looking at him just like the special counsel or the inspector general looked at Biden for a similar case when he was president. It's possible. But it has the appearance that it's political. And it's part of a pattern of political reprisal and retribution. And here's what that means. It means that whether it's political or not, every liberal interprets it as such. And for them, that's as real as if it was political. And when they're doing their No King's Day protest, when another Thomas Crooks is carving a message on a bullet, when they rally and regroup for 26 or 28, like, they think it's real. And what that represents to them is that Trump is like eroding democracy and he's targeting his opponents because he doesn't want another election because he wants to carry out his fascist agenda. That's how they take it. And how they take it is that there can be no peace or coexistence with the right, that we are now in an arms race, that on the right and the left, we've both resolved that if one gets power, it's unacceptable, and we have to do everything to undermine them. We have to redraw the districts. We have to redo the census, like recount the population. Midway through the decade, we have to go through the Supreme Court, get rid of the nuclear option in the Senate, or do the nuclear option, get rid of the filibuster in the Senate. We have to arrest everybody, spy on everybody, do it. Like, that's where we are now. And everybody recognizes that. They're already making that argument for J.D. Vance. They're saying that it's unacceptable for a Democrat to get into power ever again. So we're stuck. This is our team. This is our side. This is our guy. And now it's not even a question of, can you bear 8 years of Obama? Can the country bear 8 years of Obama? It's like, no, it's unacceptable to have Obama again because he will kill you. Because if he gets in power, he will prevent the right from ever achieving power again. And in doing so, they will guarantee that they will destroy everything you love and trans your kids and do these things. That's where we're headed. That's sort of where we are. And I said at the top of the show, maybe that's necessary. On some level, that's just a reality. We didn't start that, and maybe nobody started it. Maybe that's just where things are going. You've got one half of the country that is all immigrants, and they want to be global citizens, and they want to make America socialist, and all this. They hate all the Nazis. They want anyone that believes in traditional anything to be killed, basically, or lined up against a wall and shot. That's just what they are. That's the other half. And our half, as much as we hate a lot of it, ostensibly, we're resisting this cultural revolution. Like that, that's just how the deck is stacked. And it is true that the left, they perceive the existence of the right as an existential threat to them. That's their rhetoric. Their rhetoric is that if you believe in like gender, you're a genocider. You're genociding trans people. They say that if you want to deport the 10 million illegals that came here, that's like the Holocaust, literally. It's like, dude, 10 million people came here in the past 5 years. Now they're home free. We're stuck with them forever. How does that even make any sense? That's 10 million people just in 4 years. Forget about the people that have been working hard and been here forever and whatever, stuff like that. 10 million people came here in 4 years. Now they're home free. They spike the football. They're in the end zone. They stay here forever. We try to deport them and they want to murder the ICE agents. That's the other side. And there's no moderation. They're trying to throw out John Fetterman because he said, Trump isn't really like Hitler. They want to throw him out now. So, these people that see Charlie Kirk as an irredeemable Nazi, they actually can't have power over our lives. That's bad for your health. That's bad for us. Consequently, we need to make it so that they can't take power again. In order to do that, we need to move very quickly and aggressively and do things that have never been done and do things that are unprecedented, do things that maybe make us uncomfortable. And by that, I mean, we can't listen to every federal judge and their injunctions. We just can't restrain federal power that way. As an example, we have to deport these people. And even if we have to lock down the city with DHS to do it, it has to be done. We can't let these 10 million illegal aliens get counted in the next census. Can't let them vote. Can't let them have 20 million kids and then they're all American. No shot. But my fear is that Trump is not willing to do these things. And so what Trump is going to do is he is going to push us further down the road towards a very serious crisis, a political crisis, a confrontation with the left. But through his weakness, through his hesitancy, his lack of follow-through, he is going to let the left respond. He's going to let them grow and fortify and regroup. And then we'll have a fight on our hands. What we want to do is handicap the left so that they can't resist. We want to move in swiftly and overwhelmingly and make it so that they cannot really resist what is happening. And then with hope removed from the equation, they can't try it, they won't try it, and then there's no prolonged conflict. It's just, well, the right one day seized the power. That was better for everybody. The left tried to resist, but they couldn't. Maybe they didn't even try. And then that was it. And it was bloodless, and it was great. The alternative is, and this is what Trump has been doing so far, he is fanning the flames of conflict. He's making them rally. They're rallying around Jimmy Kimmel. They're rallying around No Kings. They're rallying around all this stuff. And what he's doing by not actually really striking at them is he's letting them create solidarity. He's letting them, whether it's the politicians, the media figures, the money, the shock troops, he's letting them get organized. And then they're going to resist and fight. And then you got a real tug of war, and it's going to be a little bit more protracted. And that means it's going to be more intense and riskier. So I've been sounding the alarm on this for weeks. We are barking up the wrong tree. Trump is not willing to do what it takes. We need loyalty tests. We need to be going into these cities, and if the mayor of Chicago is telling the chief of police, don't help ICE, they need to be arrested, is what it is. Charlie Kirk gets shot in the neck. Yeah, you got to go after Antifa. You got to be serious about it. Got to go after the shock troops. This is just the things you need to be doing. If ICE is getting rammed by 10 cars, one of which has a woman with a semi-automatic rifle, you need to bring federal law enforcement and you need to send in the Marines to protect these people. It isn't happening. So I hope that there's some semblance of a plan here because I don't see it. And what I see is that the left is organizing. They're getting pissed. They're getting violent. And I just see this ladder of escalation. I see a cycle playing out, and I don't know how we're going to turn back from it in every way, shape, and form, whether it's the deportations, whether it's the lawsuits, these DOJ cases, the shenanigans in Congress, the government shutdown, the redistricting. It's like everywhere you look, a giant dividing line is being drawn. And I don't see how that's going to be erased. Be careful what you wish for, is what I will say. So there's that. But we're going to move on. We're going to take a look at our super chats. Don't want to spend too much time on that. It's already 2 a.m. So we're going to take a look at our super chats. We'll see what you guys have to say.
All right, let's get right to it. So as soon as I saw that Matt Walsh video, and I'll tell you exactly which Matt Walsh video it was him discussing the Charlie Kirk text messages being leaked, the ones that I think Charlie's right-hand man, Andrew, sent to somebody that sent to Candace, and then Candace put it out there, and then he said he was happy that it, whatever. Yeah, those text messages. I knew in that show, Ben Shapiro wasn't going to like that. I knew Big Ben. I knew Big Ben wasn't going to like that. Matt Walsh, even as I'm watching the show, I'm trying to look at Matt Walsh and make eye contact and say, like, yo, does he know what he's doing? Like, this had to be an intentional decision that he just got fed up with constantly going along with this pro-Israel narrative, feeling as if he can't speak out on things that a lot of his followers are probably interested in, and he's probably losing a lot of his followers. And if he's not losing his followers, then in my opinion, he loses a bit of respect when you're running around as if you're the big American first guy, you're the patriot, but then you're sitting here getting silenced by Ben Shapiro and not allowed to say things that clearly align with, in my opinion, your values as far as America First. But because you're handcuffed by Ben Shapiro and are not able to speak out against anything Jewish, anything Israeli, pro-Israeli, it can become frustrating, I'm sure. It can become frustrating, I'm sure. And as I was watching that, it seemed like that was like his stake in the ground. There were different shows that before Candace got fired where I was saying, I'm like, yo, this is Candace taking a stand. That was Matt Walsh taking a stand. I'm sure that Ben Shapiro had a conversation with him, or whatever leadership in their organization had a conversation with him and said, hey, you know, it's cool, but, you know, be careful taking it any further. Of course, I can't be positive, but that's the energy that I got when I was watching Matt Walsh's show. And apparently it's coming out right now. So I think that was about like 7-8 days ago, that particular show. I was looking at some of my previous shows and I'm like, didn't you discuss this? Didn't you review this and say this? And I don't even know if I did, man. I'm gonna just act like I said it on the live show because I'm mad that I didn't do a specific video about that, because you can just see that he was shifting his stance or speaking about something that he wasn't particularly feeling too confident about speaking about. And all you have to do is look at the comments. Like, his fans are saying, like, wow, Matt Walsh is speaking out about Israel. So I guess I haven't seen this debate that Nick is referencing. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that, because Ben Shapiro does come in with this kind of feel or ambiance, or, you know, as if he has some type of supremacy or higher moral ground than other people. And it goes back to what Nick said on the other show. Like, what makes you and your morals, you know, that much more superior than everybody else? What makes you so easy to call out the messages that these young Republicans are putting out in their group chat, but meanwhile, you're perfectly fine with the genocide that your people are committing against Palestine? And the reason why I say your people, because that's how you identify. So it's almost laughable that we'll place more of a emphasis on text messages than we'll place on you actually violating God's most serious commandments of thou shalt not kill, and you pushing for that, you campaigning for that, you going on the Breakfast Club and all these other platforms and saying, oh, this isn't a genocide. By definition, it can't be considered a genocide. Like how he talks. Y'all know how he comes across. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out. And I'm looking forward to seeing if Matt Walsh was given the, what's it called when somebody blinks to send a message, like send help? Or Ski, I thought that was mine. What's it called when somebody blinks to send a message? You know what I'm talking about? When somebody, like, they either start tapping or Morse code, yeah. So we're going to check out that video to see if Matt Walsh was speaking in Morse code. We'll get into that. And once again, it came up, the conversation that differentiates Nick between, let's say, like a Tucker, a Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, a lot of people that are willing to call out Israel but act as if that situation is completely separate from Jewish culture in America and the Jewish influence. And it's very hard almost to call out one without calling out the other when you have AIPAC, which is identifying as an American organization. They identify as an American organization, a Jewish American organization, I believe, definitely American. And I would say that the majority of their people and what they push is for Jewish Americans and Israel. So I don't see how you can call out one without calling out the other and having a real substantive argument. It just seems very scary. And I understand that it can be very intimidating, especially if you're Matt Walsh in his position, because he's working for Ben Shapiro, but even for, a Tucker, Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, I don't know how they receive their funding. I don't know who that will put them at odds with. If they stand up against saying certain things about Jewish Americans, I don't know what will happen. I mean, clearly we just saw Charlie Kirk's situation. So there's political violence and we don't know where it's coming from. So therefore it can be, some dangerous situations, or you may be hesitant speaking about certain things. But he had me tripping when he hit the holy, he said, "You work for Ben Shapiro. How are you an American patriot?" And you know what's funny about it? Maybe this is why Matt Walsh feels the need to overcompensate when he's talking about other cultures, when he's talking about the Muslims or he's talking about the blacks in America. Maybe this is why he feels the need to overemphasize, in my opinion, and overdo it, because he knows that he has to appeal to this particular audience, similar to Nick's, I'm sure, would be disaffected, young white men, and even up until the age of 40. I would agree with that. That's the majority of his following. But maybe he feels like he has to go out of his way to overly appeal in those areas, because he knows that the biggest topic that a lot of your followers are shaking their head at is us supporting what's going on with Israel. So I don't know. That'll be an interesting one to follow. We'll see what ends up happening. I think that's pretty much all I have. Oh, and then to start off, Nick was talking about this threat of a civil war, and we've been talking about it on our channel for a very long time. You can tell how things are pushed in this direction. You can tell just by simply having two political parties that are clearly polarizing. And when you have certain people that are putting money in both, trying to create these narratives, trying to get us to be as divided as possible, because then it gives them the power when they can swoop in and appeal to people's emotions during chaotic times. So just the fact that we have two political parties, we know things are going to be radicalized. We know things that are always going to have a threat of becoming a civil war. Now, if you had another party, then that can serve as a sense of reason, used as a checks and balance system to prevent each party from getting as radicalized as they've now become. Because when there's just two parties, as we say all the time, then people in the middle, they're feeling like they have to choose. So the parties can get as radical as possible, because at the end of the day, they know that if their party gets as radical as possible, the other side is going to get radical. So even the people in the middle that align with their party, that may be members of their party, that may not like the extreme measures that you're taking you're still going to vote for them, because the other side is just as radical in the opposite direction. So when Nick talks about this civil war, my question would be, and this may come across maybe a little bit unfair, I hope it's not unfair, but my question would be, if you know things are super chaotic and you know things are leaning towards a civil war, if you think that that would be a dangerous thing, and I know Nick kind of said he's back and forth on it as far as wondering if it's necessary. I don't want it to happen. I'm not for war. I'm not for violence, especially when you look at these type of situations, and it's always the pawns, the people that suffer, or it's like the expendables, right? The expendable lives. Those are the ones that are being risked, while the people, at the top, the people running things, making the decisions, they're in the box office. They're in the press box, they're in the press box. So maybe I would feel a little bit differently if the people in the press box, if they decided to go out on the field and they decided to become the gladiators and they decided to handle whatever disputes they have, maybe in a ring, maybe a UFC match or something like that, rather than putting other people's actual lives at risk, because I think that's what they do. And so when you think about this and us being on the brink of a potential civil war, it does make you wonder about a lot of these text messages that are being exposed, especially the ones with the young Republicans and the ones with the guy trying to be attorney general. I forget his name. Hold on. What's the guy's name? We just spoke about him earlier. Jay. Hold on. Let me make sure that I say it correctly. Attorney general candidate Jay, who actually went to William and Mary and graduated the same year as me. Jay Jones. Yeah. Apparently went to William and Mary, College of William and Mary, and graduated the same year as me. I got to do a little bit more due diligence digging into that. But when you have somebody like him and his text messages being exposed, and you hear him talking about, rival ops candidates, it's almost like the little kids in Chicago, like, oh, their kids should die, all this type of stuff. This is where the country is going. And to me, when you look at both text messages being exposed, perhaps, even if I'm not saying that you should be canceled for anything that you said in your private message, I mean, that should not be the only thing that's used to judge whether or not you're canceled. Now, if those comments align with certain behavior that you're already exhibiting, or I don't know, to each their own. If you want to make those comments, cool. But I think that it does add fuel to the fire when it comes to our culture that we all have already acknowledged is at risk of being turned into a civil war. Hold on 1 second. Let me blow my nose real quick. Yeah, so I just think that maybe we should be a little bit more careful with our rhetoric and understanding, especially the leaders, that even though we may be responsible or not mean certain things and not take the extreme things that people may say during a show and actually put them into action and be inspired to go out there and commit whatever atrocity, there's a lot of people that are following that are furious, they're angry, they're scared, all these different things. They're naive, all these different things. And that could be a recipe for somebody hearing the rhetoric of a person. Like, it could be anybody. It could be Matt Walsh. It could be Nick Fuentes. And we've discussed these type of things. It could be a Jasmine Crockett. It could be across the board. But when we have certain people that are Democrats, when they're calling Trump Hitler, all these different things, like those things need to be, like, we need to be a little bit careful about the things that we're saying. Perhaps, I didn't mean to say we need to, but perhaps we need to. Perhaps we need to, because perhaps the political climate has become one that it's not about right or wrong, or it's not just about free speech, but perhaps maybe the energy and culture can be a bit more respectful. So therefore, we're not creating, a toxic environment for not only our generation, but for the next generation, because they may be the ones that end up actually fighting over it. So that would be my thoughts on that. Let's get into this John Bolton situation. So I didn't really know much about it. I don't really have much to say about it, to be totally honest. I asked myself a couple questions about it. Is it politically motivated? Probably. And I didn't know that these charges were actually, that this began during the Biden administration. So that is a bit different. And I think that does, take a little bit of heat off of Trump when it comes to whether or not it's being politically motivated, because it did start with Biden. But the question still stands. Is it politically motivated? Yeah, probably, whether it was Biden or Trump. Trump could have got rid of it, I guess, or I don't even know how that works. But I think that Biden wanted to bring charges against Bolton, and I think Trump wants to bring charges against him. So is it politically motivated? If I had to choose one or the other, yes or no, I would say yes. I would lean that way. I wouldn't be 100% confident, but I would say probably. And then what's the next question I asked? Is he guilty? I don't know. It seems very strange to be jotting things down in a diary that happened throughout your day, when obviously you're working with, certain amount of secrecy. And, these documents that we always hear about, with people bringing them home, all these type of things. You would think that you would go the extra mile to make sure that, you're not, one, bringing the documents home, but two, it's probably not a good idea to be taking notes or writing in a diary-like style about everything that's going on throughout the day and sending that to your wife and kids or whoever he's being accused of sending it to. So I don't know. I don't really have too many strong feelings on it. One thing that I will say is that, where was this energy when it was flipped the other way on Trump? Letitia James campaigned solely on throwing Trump in jail. Are we going to sit here and act like that's not politically motivated? So I just like consistency. I'd like all of the goofiness to go away, with all, using your political power to try to lock people up, to try to make them spend a whole bunch of money in legal fees. I'm just not interested in it. I don't really have too much to say as far as we should all, storm the Capitol and say this is not gonna. I don't know. I don't know if we should, take up this as one of the main things that we need to address. But perhaps it is. Perhaps it is serious, and perhaps I am making a bit light of it. I just don't have that much faith in politics, to be totally honest, to where we'll ever get to a point where people are not using their political power to bring charges against certain people that they may disagree with or may have had certain interactions with previously. Those would be my kind of thoughts on it. So I looked up some stuff with Bolton and where his beef ended up when it comes to Trump. He's made certain comments about him, saying he's unfit for office, saying that he prioritized personal interest over national security, things that a lot of people have said about Trump. I don't think anything too earth-shattering, but definitely as somebody that was in the position that he was in, he was the national security advisor under Trump from April 2018 to September 2019. So you can understand somebody being in that position now having those comments about Trump. Trump would definitely bring out the pettiness. My question is, this is another instance where I'm reminded about Trump's pettiness, but I'm also reminded about his lack of pettiness when it came to finding out and exposing who shot him in the ear. That's one of those things where it reminds me, whoever did that and whoever was behind that, whatever group was behind that, clearly it seems to be, a pretty powerful organization, one that Trump is, I would say, a bit fearful of, because there's no way that the pettiness of Trump would allow a certain situation like that to happen and not publicly call for that person to be, punished. I just can't see that. I would expect him to want that person to be exposed, punished, and everybody in the world to know that the person that shot him was punished very severely. Makes me wonder. So do I have anything else on this topic, really? I think I'm not just going to stay on here just to stay on here. Let me check my notes one more time, and then we can wrap it up. Let's see. I think we got a little bit of everything. But I think the question goes back to Matt Walsh. What's going to happen with Michael Knowles, who's actually Candace Owens, one of Candace Owens' kids' godfather? It'll be interesting to see how this stuff plays out, because I could see Michael Knowles and Matt Walsh leaving, especially for other opportunities. I don't know what's going to happen with the Daily Wire. A lot of people have said in the past that they're struggling financially with losing, two of their biggest influencers. It was the other young lady and Candace that they lost. So if they lose Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles, that could be the final nail in the coffin. We'll just play it. We'll just let it play out. And I'm definitely going to check out that debate. So maybe I'll put some clips up of a review of the debate, especially when Nick said that Matt Walsh is given the Morse code. So we'll talk about it when we get to it. But on that note, appreciate y'all as always. Make sure that you like, subscribe, turn your notifications on if they're not. And most importantly, leave a comment. Let us know how we're doing. As always, I try to be objective, but we all have our biases. I have my biases, and they can create blind spots in me. So I always appreciate y'all giving the insight, letting me know where I may be missing something, maybe not seeing the full picture, or just challenging my thoughts in any other way. So once again, appreciate y'all. Love y'all. I'll see y'all on the next go around.
It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there.